base. I want to point out something which something which has to do with last night, which is actually the Shari Torah Yisrael says that one of the machlokes between the Bavli and Yerushalmi is that the Yerushalmi holds that if a child is born after 9 months term, even if it doesn't survive, then you said Shiva. Whereas the Bavli holds that it has to survive 30 days in order to say Shiva. Yeah. So that actually is machlokes between the Yerushalmi over here, which says 9 months is enough, and the Bavli, which holds that it's 30 days after the 9 months.
We hold 30 days.
What?
We hold 30 days.
Oh yeah, Bavli, yeah. How long did they make a Bavli?
About doing bris milah on
a stillborn? Yeah, sure. They do the bris milah and they give a name too. At the Leviat. Yeah. That's what they do. I mean, I don't know if, exactly what they do with the name. I put it on a gravestone, whatever, but they don't actually.
What's the reason
That what?
that the bris is down?
I don't know. I'm not sure exactly why. I don't know. I think it is brought down somewhere. It's not just made up. So I don't know. I don't remember. Yeah, I don't remember. But they do a bris. So, and I'm sure it comes from the poskim. But
they bury the orla with the.
I don't know. I don't know what they do there. Asking questions beyond my level of expertise. I'm sorry. Okay, 1:30. Mitzvah Chalitza. The mitzvah of Chalitza is b'shlosha dayarim, is to be done in front of 3 judges. Afilu shlosha nediotos, even if there are 3 common people. A Chalitza may use a shoe as opposed to a sandal. Chalitza kosher, the Chalitza is kosher. Bampalia, if you use a sock, Chalitza psula, Chalitza is no good. Sandal shesh lo cape, if you use a sandal which has a heel, kosher, that's good. Shein lo cape, if she takes off his foot a sandal which has no heel, plus it's no good. Minar kuvala mata. Now it sounds here, the Gemara is going to change what it means, but it sounds here like it means from if he's an amputee and the shoe is higher than the calf, is lower than the calf, ksheira chalitzos ksheira, then it's kosher. Minar kuvala mata, if the shoe is higher than the calf, chalitzos psula, chalitzos pasul. Gemara was going to change that though. Okay? Ksiv. In the meantime, we start at the beginning. Ksiv's Kenim says in the Torah, elders, bottom right, just as you said, common folk are okay to sit in this court. Mitzvah is case, so says it's really a mitzvah to take elders. Minayin afilu deal. This is how you know that even common people are okay to form the court for chalitza. Tablomar chalutza now, because the pasuk says the shoe is removed. No matter how in front of whom it's removed, So it's best to have elders, but you can't get elders, so you can remove the shoe in front of any Tom, Dick, and Harry. Okay? So it says the word East Tiny Time.
When you say elders, do they mean sages? Or
yeah, sages, yeah. East Tiny, that those who learn Chalitza B'Gerim Ksher, Chalitza by Gerim, in other words, before a court made up of converts is kosher. These Tiny Chalitza B'Gerim Psula, those who said a Chalitza performed in front of a court made up of converts is no good. He who says that chalitza in front of a court of converts is good. Commandamar, he calls like the Joshua, it says, Be Israel. It says that his name will be called out in Israel. And in Israel means not just among the born Jews, but rather Rabbis Gerim to include the converts. The opinion which holds that chalitza in front of Gerim is no good. Commandamar, it goes like the opinion Be Israel, that B'Yisrael comes to preclude Gerim, prat legerim. So it says more, wait a minute, that's a little bit difficult. Which one is it? Hachat amar prat legerim, v'hachat amar rabos legerim. In one place you say it includes Gerim, the other case you said excludes Gerim. Now, the truth is, the question is more complex than that, because by Sukkah, it says, Kol Ezrach B'Yisrael Yishu B'Sukkos, and there we say B'Yisrael comes to include Gerim, right? So how can you say over here that B'Yisrael comes to preclude Gerim, which also comes to include Gerim, just like by Sukkot? So it says more, it's not a question. Talmud, over there by Sukkot, Ezrach, Prat Gerim. I'll tell you why there B'Yisrael means to include Gerim. Because there it says Ezrach, which would preclude Gerim, because citizens mean the Jews from birth, right? Not converts. And then it says B'Yisrael, it says among Jews, which is again prat l'gerim, also precludes gerim. So I have a miut achar miut, so it's a miut achar miut, it's what's the word for miut? A preclusion, it's called. I forget, I had a better word for miut, but it's escapes my mind. It's preclusion, what? Exclusion. An exclusion after an exclusion. So whenever we have a miut achar miut, a double exclusion, so it ends up being an inclusion. So l'rabos is hagerim. So it includes gerim as well. But here, according to the opinion which shows that B'Yisrael is a miut, is an exclusion, so it's only one exclusion, and it's not a double exclusion, we don't have a double negative to make a positive, so it's only a single negative, and when that B'Yisrael v'lo b'gerim, it only is Yisrael, not gerim. Gerim cannot constitute the court in which you, from which you would do chalitza.
We haven't had miut achar miut much in Yerushalmi or
That may be, but I don't know, in Yevamos, we just might not have, had I don't remember back from Shabbos, a place like that. Yevamos, we haven't had it, you're right. So I don't know, maybe you're right, maybe it's just not a pattern here. Good point, but I can't say enough about it. I don't know enough about it to say something. So it says, Isayin tani chalitza psula, that those who want the chalitza in front of two judges is possible. In other words, it's not enough just to have eidim. Besides, those who said the chalitza b'shnayim ksher, the chalitza with two is okay. Madar chalitza b'shnayim psul, so it sounds like the person who holds that chalitza in front of two witnesses is okay. Command mar chalitza b'geirim. Oh, I skipped. I'm fine. He holds chalitza in front of two as possible. Command would be like command holds by gerim it's possible. In other words, you have to have full-fledged court. So two is not enough and gerim are not enough. Command holds a chalitza in front of two witnesses is sufficient. Command gerim are also sufficient witness for chalitza because you don't need a full-fledged court. So therefore, two is okay and gerim are okay as well. And we take that a step further. Says the Gemara. I feel chalitza begerim kshera says where no. It could be that even the man Amaro says chalitza by gerim is kosher. Moed b'shnayim shupasul could be that he concedes that two people is not enough because it's still not a court. And I'll give you precedent for that. Sharei dinim b'amros to judge a monetary court case kshera begerim. It's a gerim count. Upsulim b'shnayim, but you have to have more than two judges, right? So therefore, maybe here too, they would say that gerim are okay, but still you have to have three judges. Two is not sufficient. East Tani in a similar issue, that those who learn chalitza b'layla kshera to do chalitza night is okay. East Tani, those who learn chalitza b'layla b'sul to do chalitza night is possible. Mana chalitza b'layla kshera, he who says chalitza night is possible, is kosher. So obviously it's not a true function of a court because the courts don't function at night. That's what it would seem, right? So mana chalitza b'layla kshera command mana chalitza b'gerim kshera. He would say chalitza b'gerim is kosher as well. Mana chalitza b'layla psuli, it says the chalitza night is possible. Command chalitza b'gerim psula, it's like the opinion which holds that chalitza b'gerim is possible. Says the Gemara, no, not necessarily. Afilu command chalitza b'gerim kosher, even he who holds the chalitza b'gerim is kosher, maybe moeded b'layla shibsula. Maybe he concedes that he can't do it at night, right? Sharei dinim b'amas ksherim b'gerim. The precedent is monetary law. Gerim can judge monetary law, upsulim b'layla, but it can't be done at night. So therefore, maybe I'll say here too that you can have gerim judge it, but to do chalitza, but you can't do it at night.
How do they make this connection between gerim and based at night?
Well, gerim can't sit in a true court.
Right.
So, but the question is, how true is this court of chalitza? Right. So if you take it as being a true court, so you can't have gerim, you can't do it at night, and also you need three. But if it's not less than a true court, then you can be makeler one or more of the components. And the Gemara is saying maybe maybe it's like a basin for Choshen Mishpat, right? Basin Choshen Mishpat, the only aspect you can be lenient on is that you can use Gerim, but it has to be done during the day, and it has to have three witnesses. So maybe it's similar to that, and the other two things you can't be making on. Only this one thing that even Gerim can do it. That's what Gemara is holding right now. Says the Gemara, he's Tani, that those who said, okay, you can use Hedyotos, but at least the Dayanim have to know to read. He's Tani, those said, baloney. I feel ain't a Dayana Yodim Likros, even if Dayanim don't know to read, they're kosher witnesses, right? Now, Madamar, now here the Pnei Moshe switches the Girsa between this line and 2-line tense. So here he puts in the words from 2-line tense. Madamar afilu ein hadayarim likros. He who says that even if the dayarim don't know how to read, they're kosher for chalitza. Ad shelo samchu lemikra. It's before we put in a smachta in the pasuk to teach us that dayarim have to dictate to him what to say in order to make the chalitza. What she should say. Uman Damar, and he says, here again we switch the words, Vusha yuadani ikrochem likros, that they have to know how to read, mishik shesamchul mikro, once they connected the act of chalitza to the pasuk. What's the pasuk? The pasuk says, V'ansa v'amra, she should respond and say. Now what does respond mean? Ein elami piacher. To respond means to hear somebody else say something and then respond to it. So therefore, if you say that she has to respond, so it means that somebody else has to read the parasha to her in order for her to repeat it. So if somebody has to read the parasha to her in order to repeat it, it must be that they don't know how to read. Otherwise, they couldn't say it to her for to repeat it. So it says the Gemara, Rabbi Yosef said, "Avami she has to hear from a dayan who will read it to her." So it's more of a law of Dumkein. However, we don't do it that way. The Maisa nowadays, says the Gemara, I don't know how it's done nowadays, in fact, but nowadays, the time the Gemara was written, it was done that the Dayanim would not read it to her, but rather somebody else would read it to her, and therefore the Dayanim do not know how to read. Okay? Says the Gemara further. Probably come across a lot of judges like that in Chicago. Choltza b'mino. Chalitza s'kshera. If you do chalitza with a shoe, the chalitza is okay. Now, I don't know if we have a picture here. I was going to bring my encyclopedia Talmudis, but I forgot. Let's see if we got one here.
7 years.
Had a lot of laces. I
Well,
remember it was like an ice skating shoe.
that wasn't 7. That was 7.
Yeah.
It was sort of, again, it couldn't be for me 7. Because I wasn't with you when
It's not here.
Well, it's sort of,
They don't have the right barn.
where else?
It had laces,
In
right?
shop.
Yeah, it has laces. It has laces.
Remember, it was like an
Yeah.
ice skating shoe. You don't think you have to lace up?
But it's like a sandal. It has a heel, but it doesn't
Yeah.
have the heel. It doesn't have a back.
But didn't we see that in the Shabbos Gemara also?
Well, maybe we saw it shots. Maybe it was in the one of the picture books. But anyway, the right barn encyclopedia is right here.
They were talking about the heel where...
No, he's right. We do have where shoe breaks, where lace breaks. It's not precisely saying there's a chalitza boot there. Okay, but that was a shoe. You're right. There is a parallel sugya later on here. All right, if I remember, I'll try and bring it for tomorrow night. But of course, I forgot for tonight, so it's now no guarantee. Says where chalitza mina chalitza if you use a shoe, it's okay. Says more top itself me nitzrucha. According to whom did you have to tell us this? So it says Rabbi Meir. Why? Because Meir says Ein Choltzim Mimino. There it says you shouldn't use the shoe. You're supposed to use the sandal. But so we're trying to say, but the Evid, if you use the shoe, it's okay. Tani Rabbi Yosef said, Ma'aser shalachti l'netzivin. A Ma'aser Korei went to the Tzivin. V'yisrael Shem Zokin Echad saw there a certain elder. V'namti lon, I whispered to him, Baki l'chor Rabbi Yehuda ben B'seir miyamecha. Did you know ever Rabbi Yehuda ben B'seir? Rabbi Yehuda ben B'seir lived in the Tzivin. Anybody remembers the famous mice in the Bavli and Psachim? Ben B'seir lived in the Tzivin, and a guy came to his house one year and said the previous year he'd eaten for the Korban Pesach, and he told him, well, you didn't eat the best part. you should have eaten from the tail. And the next year when he went up to Pesach and disguised as a Jew, so he asked for the tail, and that's who told you he asked for the tail, and he said and that's how they caught him and they executed him. And they said Rabbi Yehuda a message, praiseworthy are you that you sit in the tzivin, but your net is extended out towards Yerushalmi, right? So Nitzivin, I don't know if it's exactly in Chutz La'aretz, but it's obviously nowhere near Yerushalayim. Anyway, so somebody came, so Rabbi Yossi came to Nitzivin. And he said, and he said, he saw there a certain old man. But Nabilan, I said to him, to the old man, Baki l'cha Rabbi Yehuda, but I said, the Jimmy Amecha, the Jeremy Rabbi B'Seir in your life, but Numali, and he responded to me, Rebbe, Shulchane Isi Be'iri. I was a table, a money exchanger in my city. Shulchane was frequently at my table. So I said to him, Ra'isa choletz b'yamecha? Did you see him do a chalitza during the day? B'meya choletz, what he used to use? B'mino of a sandal, a shiur or a sandal? Amar so he said to me, the money changer, Rebbe, v'chisa yesh sandal b'yunkomenu. Do we have sandals here? Of course you use shoes. We only wear sandals. B'marti, I said, if that's the case, I don't understand how Meir said you can't use shoes. If Rabbi Yehuda ben Seira clearly used shoes because in his place nobody wears sandals. Rabbi Ba, now I just saw this today in the Shai Torah Yisrael, he says Rabbi Ba in the Yerushalmi is Rabbah in the Bavli. And it's actually not Rabbi Ba, but Rav Ba. Okay? That was his name. Ba was his name and Rabbah was his nickname. So Rabbi Ba and Rabbi Yehuda b'Shem Rav said, or Rabbi Ba in the name of Rabbi Yehuda, the name of Rav said, Im Yavel Yofiol, and Navi comes to Yomer and says, Shechotzim that we can use a shoe to do chalitza. Shomila, we accept that from him. She'ein chotzim b'sandal, if he comes and says we can't use a sandal, Ein Shomila, we don't accept that from him. Because we Shekarei Rabbi Nagu Lachlot b'sandal. Because many multitudes have already started using sandals to do chalitza. V'aminag mepatal es halacha. And the minhag which we have canceled the halacha, and we go after our minhag and not after the halacha which Eliyahu will tell us. Rabbi Zia, Rabbi Yerushalmi Yevamos, Rav, they said differently. Im Yavel Eliyahu comes Yomer she'ein chotzim b'minhag. If Eliyahu comes and says that we shouldn't use a shoe, Shomilo, we will listen to him. But if he says she'ein chotzim b'sandal, that you can't use a sandal, ain't Shomilo, that we won't listen to him. Sharei Rabbi Nagul Yas chotzim b'sandal, because he too says that the masses, the multitudes, already use a sandal to do chalitza. And custom overwhelms halacha. Now, what's the difference between these two statements? So the Pnei Moshe explains, according to Rabbi until Eliyahu comes and says you can do chalitza with a shoe, so using a shoe is not l'chatchila, it's only b'diavad, right? If Eliyahu comes, it confirms that we can use even the chatchila, right? According to Rabbi Zia and Rabbi Yerushalmi Rav, we can use a shoe even till Eliyahu comes, right? Only if he comes and says that we can't use it, then we'll have to stop. But in the meantime, till he comes, we can use it and we don't have to refrain from doing so. Okay, so that's the difference between the two opinions. Says Gemara, Rabbi Zia mechabe l'Rabbi Ba bar Yitzchak, Yishor Rabbi Bar Yitzchak, kafaf. What's a kafaf? Nobody knows. But one of three things I saw them Farshim say. It either means that it's a certain shape of the shoe, it's like a bent over, or it's the shape of a person who's standing, perform the chalitza ceremony bent over, or it's the Shai Torah says that that it is has to do with how you tie the shoe. So anyway, he was showing him some aspect of chalitza, which we are no longer familiar with what he was showing him. So he showed Yitzah kafaf. Amarle, so he said, Vavdin Kain, that's what people do, whatever he was doing. Amarle, Vavdin, yes, people do it. Amarle, and he's continued to say, it's still Rabbi Zira speaking, he's saying, Amarle, ha-rabcha, not Rabban. Your Rebbe kafaf did kafaf too. Okay? Whatever it is, he did it too. That's the end of the story. Rabbi Zira said, Kosher kadesh yochol ha'echlo me'elav. When you tie the chalitza shoe, you have to tie it that it's tight enough, it's straight enough, that theoretically if the guy want to walk, he can walk in the chalitza shoe. Alright? Ketzro, he said, how do you do it? How do you tie it up? Amrei Chanani braid Rav Hillel, Chanani the son of Hillel said, though you make a slip knot in it. So that the woman could undo it in one of her hands. So how does the woman undo it? Matarasa, even though it says who it means. See, Matarasa biyamin, she undoes the shoe with the right hand. The tavsasa b'small and grabs tavsasa b'small, grabs on the shoe with her left hand. The shometes ake biyamin and removes the heel from the foot with the right hand. The garasan biyamin and pulls it away from the foot with the right hand. In order that both the removal and the untying should be with the right hand. Okay? Rav Amar Ikar Chalitza Hataras Ritzura. Rav said, however, the primary component of Chalitza, which we have to be concerned with, is the undoing of the strap or the belt on the shoe. So it says, Loche, Nam Rabbi Ba, B'Shem Rabbi Yehuda, then Rabbi Ba said, name Rabbi Yehuda, and Rabbi Zrikon say, Mati Ba B'Shem Rav said, Rabbi Zrikon is inclined to say the name of Rav. Divrei Chachamim said, Cholza, if she took of the shoe of Lo Rakaka but did not spit at him. For Rakaka, if she spit at him, Lo Cholza, and she didn't do Chalitza towards him. Lo Asa Klum, it's not a valid ceremony. Until she does both. She has to do both chalitza and spit at him as well. Right? So it says more afagav. So it says more, so we see here that you need the whole ceremony, right? No more, no less, right? So it says more afagav the Ravamar achetachlot v'tirok, that you have to have the full ceremony of spitting, that of removing the shoe and spitting. Moder Rav concedes Iker Chalitza, the primary component of the Chalitza, that everyone can be set off for certain halachic occasions against all others, is considered to be Hataras Ritzua, considered to be the unbinding of the knots in the belts of the shoes. Okay? Now, on an unrelated point, only related in terms of the discussion's model as opposed to the actual discussion itself. Says the Gemara, Rav Amar Ikar Chazakas per Chazaka. The primary way to establish ownership of a field after 3 years is by achnosas peiros, by harvesting the fruit and bringing the fruit into the house with you. So it says the Gemara, Lochen Amar Rav. Is that a contradiction? Didn't Rav say, Vein Sharo, so Menakish Ma'adir, it's only if you see them hoeing and weeding, right? So that's the case, how can you have chazaka with just eating the fruit? So it's more the same answer. Afagav Domar Rav, Ve'en Sharo, so Menakashino, Rav said, you have to see him doing the fruit, hoeing and plow, and what's the other word? It was weeding. So Modorat, Ika Chazaka, that's pairs. Nevertheless, the primary chazaka is the taking in the fruit. I'm Rabbi Yana.
You're not going to be able to take in the fruit unless you've hoed and weeded anyway.
What?
You're not going to have.
Yeah, the question is, let's say you come later in the year, after that period is over. So does that year count towards your 3 years? So they say, since you didn't hoe and plow during that year, so therefore it doesn't count. Or hoe and weed, so it doesn't count. That sounds like it doesn't count. Says Mara, I'm Rabbi Yana. Rabbi Yana said, Cholatzu. Let's say you did chalitza, and then it should, instead of v'chzira, it should say cholatzu v'tirahi. Let's say he took off the shoe, but she untied it. Well, actually, her part is the good part, right? He took off the shoe and she only untied it. That's the way I should have inflected the statement. Or he chotza, she did the chalitza. She only did chalitza v'tirahu, and he did the untying. So he says, in that case, chalitza subsula. The chalitza is no good, and therefore, since chalitza is no good, so therefore you would think so that he can be miyabimer. Says the one no. When Mikama comes, even though she only did half of the procedure, he cannot do evil now. His only option is to chalitza over again. But evil is not an option for him, right? So it says the Gemara, Lama, why is that? why is chalitza no good? Mishum she'ein shtehen ba is because she only did one component, not the other component. The two components one is the loosening of the shoe and the other is removing it. And she only did one of them in either case, not both. Is that the problem? Or mishum she'ein el seder is because they weren't done in order. Because she didn't remove the shoe before it got taken off. So therefore she was removing the shoe later on. Chronologically, that's after the deed, so maybe that won't go back and rectify the situation. So what's the problem? Is the problem because she didn't do both, or is the problem because she did them out of order, right? What's the difference between what the problem is? The difference is chazer v'tira. If she went back and she undid the knot, right? Tomar mishum shein shtehen ba. If you're going to say that the problem is that you don't have both the Torah and the Chalitza, right? That it's not that the out of order is the problem, but that it's not.
First of all, it's difficult to take off the shoe if you haven't untied the laces.
But she slipped it off.
Okay.
So, yeah. So says Gor again. Yes, no, maybe. You have to go enter?
I don't recognize them.
Okay. So, Manaf be benamed. Again, what's the difference? She took it off. She didn't originally untie it. She took it off. Then, afterwards, she went back and untied it again. Okay? I'm not sure exactly. It's not clear on the Gemara if she puts it back on the guy's foot and then unties it, or sitting on the ground here, she just takes it and unties the knot, like a mother takes out a knot from a knotted kid's shoe. So, in any event, if you're going to say, if you're going to say the problem with the of not doing it in order, of his doing chalitza and her doing Torah, or her doing Torah and his doing chalitza, is because she didn't do both, so here she did both. She just did them out of order, right? And that should be okay. But reish shtein ba, right? In terms of mishum shein shtein ba, reish shtein ba, just not in order. But we know that that's not good. You can't do Torah after chalitza, right? Arelis time of the law do ella. So obviously the reason why it's no good is because they're not in order. Okay, that's the top of Samach Vav on base. So obviously the reason, if we know that when she does it again, that Torah after the Chalitza, when she didn't do that originally, it doesn't do any good because she already messed the order, so we see the order is a problem. Amr says, Yesh Me'em Shama, there are those who said Chalitza Psula, that the chalitza is no good, but and therefore he wants to go back and do yibum, yachzir, and go back and do yibum. They said in certain cases, chalitza, so psula, the chalitza is possible. If he wants to go back and do yibum, lo yachzir, you can't take her back. You can't go back and do yibum. Now what are the distinctions? Bampalya, if you did chalitza on a sock, not on a shoe, and if the yavam upon whom he did chalitza was a child, not an adult, chalitza is psula, chalitza is no good. If he wanted to go back and be miyabem, here the word lo is a mistake. Yachzir, he can go back and be miyabem, because that's not considered to be even a chalitza at all. There's such a thing as chalitza psula, like when you do it out of order. In that case, you need to do another chalitza, but in the meantime you can't do yibum, because it's not completely null and void. I guess maybe it's only null and void to Rabbanan. So therefore you can't. So therefore, since it worked part way, you can't do yibum. You got to do back and go back and do another chalitza, but you can't do yibum. So there are other cases in which chalitza doesn't work, and it doesn't work so badly that you can go back and even do yibum afterwards. And that's the case if you did chalitza to a yavam was a cotton, or you did chalitza on a sock instead of a shoe. Okay.
Even though your intention was to do chalitza.
Right.
So that doesn't break the secret.
It's like you're taking to give a get, but filling out a form and doing so. I mean, you'll take it out of a Cracker Jack box. It's not going to work. Okay, so that's because that's been according to form, proper form. Now getting back to that sock issue. You did chalitza with the sock. Eastani Tani, those who learn chalitza as a ksher on the chalitza is good. Eastani Tani, those who say chalitza is no good. Madam, my chalitza ksher says the chalitza is good, but I'm pious sure I never heard of such a thing. But when he's wearing a leather sock, right? You ever hear a leather sock? Guess you have to have been there. Madam, my chalitza ksher. If the sock is made out of cloth. So if it's made out of cloth, it's no good because it's not a shoe. So chalitza, it's made out of leather, it's good because it's a shoe. Says the Gemara, Biminal Bampalia. Yeah, when he's wearing a sock and a shoe. He's wearing a sock and a shoe, right? So imagine that, right? So he's wearing socks and shoes. So Mia by Eastai those said Chalitzos Kshera. The Chalitzos Kshera, even if you just take off the shoe. Eastai Chalitzos Chalitzos possible, just take off the shoe. Mana Chalitzos Kshera, and it depends on the following. The Lewis says Chalitzos Kosher, Kshoisa Bam Payo Shobega Minal Shor. If he's wearing a woolen sock or a cloth sock, and wearing a leather shoe. So then the chalitza is on the shoe. It's not a problem. The sock is tufel to the body because it's not distinct into itself because of any significance. And therefore everything is fine and dandy, right? So it says the Gemara, Manamar chalitza, Psuli said the chalitza is possible. Kshaisam paya shel or. That's about where he was wearing leather sock. Isn't there such a thing, leather hosen or leather pants, right? Yeah, that's not leather socks. So or when he was wearing socks made out of leather, even though his shoes are made out of leather, but he's not taking the shoe off the body because the body is encased underneath an additional layer of leather, right? So that's no good, right? That's not going to work. Even down a puzzle. He says basa me'al raglo v'lo me'al de me'al. It says from the top of the shoe, from the top of the foot, and not from the top not from the top of the shoe, which is on top of the foot. So that's why we say that it's got to be leather on flesh or leather on garment, but not leather on leather. Okay, that's no good. That then the chalitza is no good. Says what is tani. So those who said you wear socks on Yom Kippur. Besides those who said ain you can't wear socks on Yom Kippur. Amrachas said he said you can wear socks on Yom Kippur. It's talking about shobega where it's made out of cloth. Manamar ain he who says you can't wear an ampalia says that it is made out of leather, right?
Yes,
so that
it's
right.
Not a sandal. You can't wear leather
because it's Yom Kippur, right? Besandal sheshlo cave kosher. A sandal which got a heel is good for chalitza. Tam and Armin over there in Bava they said going elon kansurus. So I should call it kansur. That was one which had a heel. And they said like the shoes we wear in Yisrael, they're of that style. Amar Rav said, Ilule de Chamir Reb Chia Ruba Chavivi, were not to see Reb Chia the Great, my uncle. Cholatz Bahaden Shortzifa de Shantzvei. If I not were to see him taking off the shoes with the with buckles. It's kind of like buckles or fasteners. In other words, he didn't require the shoe to be untied, Reb Chia. He just required the buckles to be undone, right? So the question is not considered to be enough of a Torah in order to get the ball rolling for chalitza. So Gemara says yes. That's what Gemara precisely says here. Says the Gemara, Lulei the Chaimer Chiruva Chaviv and Natzimeko Cholitz Badin Shurtziva Der Shantzvei, using the buckles or whatever else it was over there, which made it easier to put on off. Love Liban Rava Lehen the Mevo came. His heart would not have been full to allow them. He wouldn't have had the courage to allow them to be involved on using the anything less of a tie knot in order to do chalitza. In other words, he would have required, we're not to see Rabbi Chia using buckles or whatever it was on the shoe, so he would have required actually that it's a tied knot. Since he saw Rabbi Chia being makel, so therefore they even use a buckle, it's okay. So, Rabbi Ami Bar Kadime Bar Dravka. Now here we haven't had this in a long time. The idiot factor. The brother of the mother of Rav Kahana, for obvious reasons, his name is not recorded, or reasons which will become obvious. His name is not recorded. Chaltz Balayla, he did chalitza at night, that's one wrong. Biyachid, without without a basin, that's two wrong. B'madlel Shabbos was on a Friday night, on Shabbos, that's three wrong. I lost count three, more after three. B'sandal Shosham, he used a sandal made not of leather but of cork, that's four wrong. Mud, he did chalitza, the standing up, he's supposed to be sitting down, that's five wrong. Alright, so you say another thing he did wrong, below Raka, because she didn't spit. And she's supposed to spit. Shama Rav, so Rav said, and he heard this and he said sarcastically, "Ha! V'man yavato, who did this thing? Nobody's such a big time chacham." Ha ha! Sarcastically, sick, right? SIC. Nobody's such a big time chacham. El Achuid, Amimed, Rav Kahana, only that you'll do a dika klutz. The brother of the mother of Rav Kahana. So his name is not recorded for posterity, unfortunately, but he was not too good in the school of posting. Right. Well, he was a Babylonian, so we don't have to. Says the Gemara, Kinivas Nisa. This is the way to read our Mishnah. Not that we're talking about an amputee and where he puts on a shoe. The shoe must be on the foot. That doesn't matter. Rather, it means the kosher and akubal amatak shera. The ties which go at the side of the foot in order to secure the shoe cannot go up to the calf, right? The kosher and akubal amatak shera. If you do it below the calf, it's okay. In akubal amatak above the calf, asura, it's forbidden. Period. Okay. Says so. The bottom line is. How far up the ties go. It's really one long cord which is wrapped around like a high top. How far up to the tie, how far up does it have to go? So it says it goes all the way up to calf, it's no good. If it stays below the calf, that's okay. But an amputee can't do chalitza because he's got to have a foot. It's not just to put, we're going to see it later on, it's not enough to have the, whatever he has on the stump, it has to have a foot. Okay? Says Ksiv, it says, when they went to the Beis HaMikdash or the Mishkan, they used to do Kiddush Yadayim Raglayim. They used to wash your hands and feet. We're up to where? By the time we learned concerning this, Biyad in the hand, Ad Perak up to the knuckles. But Regel in the leg, Ad Suvach up to the ankles. So therefore, up to the arm is considered to be the hand, and up to the ankles is considered to be the foot. Okay? Says the Gemara, if that's the case, how can you say over here that he can yeah, he says up to the bottom of the calf he can go. Why? It should stop at the ankle, right? It says here that Kiddush Yadayim Raglayim is only up to the top of the ankle, right? Out of Suvach means up to the ankle, right? So where does the leg end then? At the ankle, right? So how come we said when you what?
The height of the sandal.
Right, the hand of the sandal can go all the way up to the calf, which is further up than the ankle. How come that's permissible? That's Moore's question.
Well, but the shoe itself, the sandal itself only goes to the ankle. It's only the tzulos that go to the calf.
Yeah, but how can they go past? If it says me'al raglo, we know regel by Kiddush Time Raglaim is only up to the ankle, so how can they go past it? It's like Mosif Korea. Anybody who has on the tracks, right? So it says the Mar Shani D'chsi Me'al Raglo. Here it says from atop his foot. So therefore, here it can even go higher than the ankle and go all the way up to the calf, or partially up the calf. Says the Gemara, if that's the case, so keep on going up the leg, right? Right, so let's say even higher up. Says the Gemara, no. Me'al raglo, it has to be on his foot. V'lo mimal demal raglo. It has to be from something which is the top, something which was the top of his foot. Okay, can't be though that far removed. So Rav Kana asks, he's a Kahana. Kahana asks, the hawk, see, it doesn't say, what do you mean the leg doesn't travel over there? It says when the kid is born, it comes out Bein HaRaglaim. Where's Bein HaRaglaim? Up here? So we see that regal goes all the way up the thigh.
They didn't want to get graphic.
Well, that I don't know. The Gemara doesn't pull that many boundaries. Rather, it's just Elanira, it can be Ben Ragla. Since it looks like it comes from between her legs, so therefore we call it between her legs. But it should not be construed as any other ramification, right? Like we learned over there, there was a place for the crime to wash their hands and feet between the ulam and the mizbeach, between the sanctuary and the mizbeach. Umashal tavidam, it's a bit towards the south. So it says, was it really between the ulam and mizbeach? It says there by itself there was a little bit to the south, right? So it says, ulam mizbeach. It looked like it was between the ulam and mizbeach. That's why we assumed that that's why we called it between the ulam mizbeach, even though it wasn't precisely there. So to here, certain things are not exact in the language, but we understand what the import is. Okay? Mishnah base. Chalta b'sal noshein shelo. Why does chalitza on a guy on a sandal which doesn't belong to him? Or b'sal noshein. It's a wooden sandal. Dutch, this is chalitza in Holland, right? Oh, b'shel small, he did chalitza on the left foot. Shel small b'yamin, on the left foot with the right hand. Chalitza s'ksher, the chalitza is okay. However, chalta v'gadu sheyachol haloch bo. Oh no, not however yet. No, this is good still. Chalta v'gadu sheyachol haloch bo. He did chalitza, she did chalitza to him in shoes which are too large for him to walk, but he could still walk. In other words, they weren't Michael Jordan shoes, but they were too big. So as long as he could still walk, it's okay. He can use that for chalitza, right? Chalitza or b'katan. What if the shoe is too small? So as long as the shoe chayfa rov lag, as long as it can cover most of his leg, the chalitza is kosher as well. Chalitza b'layel v'chitzas dayin chalitza kseir sheira the chalitza. It's good. Rabbi Lezer points. Rabbi Lezer says it's no good. Uva small, if you did chalitza with the left hand, chalitza sa besulo. The chalitza is no good. Rabbi Lezer Machshir says it's good. Says more. Shovel Shabbat Zar Shani Dachas. You have a shov which came from Avodah Zarah. We actually have this in Masech Sukkah. You have a shov which came from Avodah Zarah or from a city which was judged that all its cattle had to be birthed. So then kosher. It's okay. Still use the shofar. Kanadesh apostle. You say it's no good. How can mighty belulav shusha apostle? And if you take a look from the Yani Dachas or Avodah Zarah, it's no good. Can't use it, right? Ba'amin shover ba'amin lula. What's the machine shover lula? All right, it says belula ksiv. Why belula is no good and by shofer it is good? So by lulav ksiv, by lulav it says lachtem lochem. It says you should take for you mishal lochem from things which belong to you. Lo mishal yitzura no, but not something which is just but no longer belongs to you, so you can't use it anymore. Is that clear? So it says the Gemara. I lost my place. Bram Hacha, but here Yom Troy Elachem. Interesting Gemara. Here it says Yom Troy Elachem Nikom Makom. No matter what, Yom Troy you have. In other words, it doesn't have to belong to you. So therefore, even if it's about to burn and it doesn't belong to anybody, you can still use it to blow your shofar as long as you hear shofar.
Yeah, well,
what?
Just the difference between the two types of mitzvahs.
Yeah.
One's a mitzvah in the object, the other's a mitzvah not in the object.
That's what I was going to say.
That would be good. Problem is that that's what Rabbi Lezer says. So obviously Rabbi Lezer is about to say so. It says something different. Look at the next line. Rabbi Lezer Tamam Begufo Yoytze. Over there, in the case of lulav Yoytze with the cheftza, right? Bram Hoch, that's why it needs a shiur. And if it's about to be burnt, it's as if the shiur is no longer there. It's as if your measure has gone up in smoke, right, or become ashes. But here, Abraham Hocha b'kol yetzi with the sound. V'yesh kol aser b'nozer kol, which is aser b'no. Of course not. Which is exactly what you two were saying, right? Which means Rabbi Yossi wasn't saying it. Sorry. If Rabbi Lezer saying it means Rabbi Yossi was not saying it. So actually, there's a long shiur Yerushalmi here because he finds the statement very cryptic. But I don't see it so difficult. There's a famous shiloh whether you're allowed, which the Rishonim Achronim discuss, including the Big Dishesh, whether you can own Isurei Hanoah. There's such a thing as ownership by Isurei Hanoah. And most of the overwhelming majority opinion is that there is no ownership by Isurei Hanoah. So if you have to own a lulav, because it says lachem, so then you have to, if it's us or it has to be burned, you no longer own it. That's why not Yotzei. But by shofar, it never says anybody has to know it. The truah has to be yours. Yom truah yelochem. But you don't have to actually own the shofar. As long as you have a shofar which is objectively an object which exists, that suffices. So Rabbi Yossi and Lez's reasons are different. Rabbi Yossi says there's a requirement that it be yours by the lulav, not by shofar, and that's why by lulav you can't be yaitz with the Yidachas because it can't belong to you. And the other teretz, which you guys like better, is Rabbi Lez's teretz that it depends if it's a mitzvah yaitz with a voice, and the voice has no shiur, or it's a mitzvah yaitz with the object, and the object of course has a shiur, and therefore if you need the shiur, it doesn't work. Now the thing is like this, everybody asks the question on the next Gemara. Not everybody, but a bunch of people. Oh, by the way, the shiur Yerushalmi, he has a very difficult question. He says, the Rav Yehuda Chassid writes that, the Sefer Chassidim writes, if you stole a siddur, you're not yotzi davening, that you daven from the siddur. This is, why not? It's no worse than a stolen shofar, right? The mitzvah is not to read from the siddur, and the mitzvah is to davening. Okay. So anyway, he doesn't answer it. So, says more further. Everybody gets a sandal from here, Yidachas is kosher. To see chalutza no matter what shoe came off. Now, the people go crazy on this. So, shiur Yerushalmi's primary issue here is how can you use a shoe of Yidachas? It doesn't have a shiur anymore, right? It doesn't have a shiur. It's got to cover most of the foot. It's chayfer rov raglo. It's what it said in the Mishnah. So, the Yerushalmi Yidachas' shoe. It's a good question, right? So, I want to answer based on Reb Chaim. A very famous Reb Chaim. The define is famous because I know it. The Reb Chaim says there's a Rambam who says that you can use a lechi for Shabbos made of an asherah. You know, it's made of asherah and kitutei mechta it's supposed to be burnt, so therefore it shouldn't have a shiur, but you can use it nonetheless. High lechis be 10 tefachim high, and kitutei mechta it's not 10 tefachim high. So the main teretz of the Rambam, the Reb Chaim's teretz is that it's not a din that the lechi has to be 10 tefachim high. The Rishus Hara Yochid has to be 10 tefachim high. And the lechi has to be something which encloses it. So it can enclose it even if it has no inherent shiur. But as long as you have something which abuts an area which has 10 tefachim, and that thing does not have to have 10 tefachim itself, but rather it has to abut and define something which has 10 tefachim, so therefore even it's kitutei mechta yatshure, that means that it has no inherent dimensions, but it still exists. It exists like the concept of a geometrical line. Geometrical line has no volume, no space, takes up no space, but it exists as a line. So too, this is the line which demarcates the Rishus HaYah, which has a shiur from the Rishus HaRabbi. You follow me so far? That's what Reb Chaim says. So that, I would say the same thing here. There's no shiur in the shoe. The shoe's got to cover the foot, but that's not a shiur in the shoe. It's mamish like the lechi, which encloses the lechi shel hasher, which encloses the rishus, right? There's no, just like there's no inherent shiur. It's just got to be substance or I shouldn't even say substance, but some line which demarcates the difference. So to here, the shoe has to demarcate the difference, but it has no inherent shear in itself. It's got so much could be removed from the foot. And that's what it's saying. Chalutza na mikom makom, right? It doesn't matter. It has to be that beforehand the foot was not barefoot, and now the foot is barefoot. There's no din of shear. And that's why even if the shoe has no shear to it, it's still, beforehand it was covered the foot, now the foot is uncovered, that suffices. You can use a shoe of near nidachas.
You say there's a difference between a physical and a spiritual or halachic shear?
You could.
The physical shear is that the lechi is 10 almost
10 tvachim.
And physically it's there.
Yeah.
But halachically it's not. There is no shear because it's from your nidachas or shear or whatever.
Yeah, so how come it works over there? So why does it work by...
because it's a physical...
you need riots for that, though. You have to prove there's a distinction between two different types of shurim. I don't know if you can say that off the hand. Too flippant. Say it without any proof. It says where... but I might just be saying that because I like my answer better. I'll be honest with you. So just like over there, you say Yom Trua Mikom Makom, no matter how you get the voice of the shofar, right? So to here, as long as before it was covered and now it's barefoot, that's okay. Sando Shalates. What if your sandals made out of wood? Chavrai B'Shem Rav says, Vushu, now all the next time, 3 times says eitz, it should say or. It should say leather. It's what the Rashba says, brought down here. Chavrai Vushu Henshu Choftin Shal eitz, Shal or. It's got to have a lining of leather. Right? Baba Shem Rav said, "Venshu Mamidim Shal or." It's got to have a sole of leather. Right? Baba Shem Rav said, "Venshu Tarsiosav Shal or." It's got to have ties of leather. So basically, you can have a little bit of wood, but mostly it's got to be leather. Okay, everything else can be leather. Right? Here, Sherry said, "I feel cool. It's kosher." No, even if it's completely made of wood, it's okay. Masizim Sar Rabbi Yochanan, right? Rabbi Yochanan from Brisa says, "Sandal shel kash tamei medras." If you have a sandal made out of straw, it's tamei. If a person who's a zav or zava walks in it, and he can use some chalitza. Divrei Rabbi Akiva. Chacham say, interestingly, it's not medras azav. The reason was because the zav doesn't like walking on wood; it's not comfortable, so it's not medras. Medras is to be something which is comfortable to walk on. But nevertheless, for chalitza, even Chacham holds it's also okay, because you don't have to be able to walk in that shoe. You just have to be able to encase your foot in that shoe. So it sounds like if straw is okay, certainly you should say that wood is okay as well. Let's just get down base. Shandal shenipsku aznav, if a sandal has its handles which hold the straps in place have become severed. Nipsku chavotav, parts of the sole have become severed. If parts of the actual straps used to clothes become severed, or one of the components of the shoe, it seems like part of the heel or part of the sole, I don't know exactly what, is separated from a tar that ruins the shoe, and whatever tumor the shoe has flows off. If only one of them, not both of them, one side of the shoe, one came off. One of the handles. One of the parts of the sole. One of the tie parts. Or shapishu rov kappa, or the majority of its kappa have come off. Most of its hide. So then tummy. It's still tummy, I guess, because it's still mostly intact, so everything loses tumah. If the inner one came off, it's already late. We'll come back to this tomorrow.
It still has a base kibble?
Yeah. It's not base kibble, it still has a shame shoe. Because shoes are mitami not because of the base kibble necessarily, but because they are kalim made out of ore. They don't have to have a base kibble, I think. But we'll come back to tomorrow.